So I'm fighting a virus right now, and one thing you might know about me is that being free from illness is not a prerequisite to me for spirituality. Of course, I'll rest when rest is needing to happen or when rest is happening, but there's a wisdom in the body fighting off bacteria, germs, and currents from the external world, and the slowness that comes online is pointing to something that we overlook so much in our purity obsessed, achievement oriented, multifaceted culture. So if I'm slower than usual, that's part of the reason in my speech. But there's something that I want to name, and we'll see how many words come out around it. But this shift from seeking, the shift out of seeking, into what? What do I do when I'm done seeking? What does that even mean? When I've been so devoted, when I've believed to be true so many teachings and so many concepts and practices and groups and methodologies and frameworks and archetypes, and when there's been so much work and so much study, so much energy in seeking, what happens when the search is over? I'm laughing because that implies that you arrive somewhere and you know everything. Or that the search can end and then you never search for anything again. Like, that's not actually what I'm pointing to, but it's very real that spiritually we can be seeking something. We can be seeking liberation. We can be seeking awakening and truth around who we really are, what we really are, how we really are, how life really is, and what it's not. There can be true realization that nothing is ever permanent or solid or fixed in who I take myself to be or what I take life to be, that everything is dynamically changing and vibrant and alive exactly how it is. And I'm dynamically connected to this life that can be realized. And there can be a falling away of seeking anything else that can be so self-evident. And there can be practices and efforts that seem to have helped us get there. I'm not so sure. I'm not saying it's not the case. But I feel that it's unknowable how anyone unravels suffering and unravels identity. Clearly, many practices, including the body, exercise, yoga, energy work, acupuncture, body work, medicine, religious practices, meditation, psychological practices, inner work groups, processing, like these tools can help us release kind of the toxins, to concentrate, to have discipline that improves health. That sharpens our consciousness in a certain regard, our attention, our muscle tone, our emotion regulation, our ability to be parents to ourselves and to our children. Like, all of these are valuable. If I'm alive on this planet, wouldn't I want to be healthy? Wouldn't I prefer to be healthy? Sure, I'd prefer not to have a hacking cough right now. Sure, I'd prefer to be able to speak louder so I don't have to cough. Like, yeah. Is that the same as awakening? Are those practices what woke someone up when they shifted, when everything fell away? Is there any one thing that led to it, or was it a surrender that all of those things allowed for safety of life to stop abstractly reflecting on itself and to clearly and directly contact itself in a vulnerable, awake state? You can be the judge or let it go. It's not an important question to you. But what happens to all of the seeking? When that seeking energy just burns itself out. So I have many friends who are teachers who teach that awakening can be taught. That's not what I'm offering here. People find me already in the process of something unraveling. I'm not going to put a name on it, but if people resonate with what's being spoken of in this way, there's something already in the process. And I'm not claiming to say that I can help them expedite or change that process in any way. I can offer safety and container and a light for looking, which will catalyze out of our control its own effects. But it can be the case that when we're finding ourselves tired of seeking, or it's tired itself out, there's kind of a listlessness, maybe. All the books that we once read, all of the beautiful teachers that we once looked up to. I can resonate with some of my favorite books that when I pick up again, they're not the same in the moment where I am right now. It doesn't mean that they're less valuable or that maybe at a different point they'll get a different resonance from me. But I don't want to pin down what I'm pointing to with a word that might get misinterpreted, but I'm not seeking the thing that I was seeking before. Whatever it was, whatever it is for you. If you're finding yourself in a kind of limbo state of seeking, winding itself down, and maybe like a sadness or a grief or an impatience or a doubt or comparison, like, why don't I feel joyful and inspired like everyone else? Or why don't I feel that discipline and structure and vibrancy? Or I shouldn't be, blah, blah, blah. None of that really matters, that external stuff. But when the seeking ends, well, what happens when we can't do anything anymore? Well, we're shifting into a state of being. But being doesn't have to be what the mind thinks it is. It doesn't have to be a lack of anything. It doesn't have to be a lack of devotion either. It doesn't have to be a lack of discipline either. Often in the non-duality or atheistic movements, there's this polarization away from reverence, devotion, the sacred. That feels the opposite. That feels just missing the mark of what's true. The devotion becomes in the being. And there can still be this hunger for the inspiration of life in the same way that maybe I used to have in this religion that I used to belong to, or in this group that I used to belong to, or whatever. But it's changed. It's not the same. And so what is it now? In the same way that I think yoga is still healthy and helpful after seeking has ended, as long as we're still alive in this earth, eating the foods that align with us, sleeping, having relationships, contributing to our families or our society in the way that feels like it's calling us. Like, devotion and discipline can still have an alive place in all of it. It no longer takes on this flavor of devotion to seeking. Maybe the books that you're reading are more poetic, or it turns into music, or it turns into devotion to a whole new practice that just feels it's not climbing a ladder anywhere, or it's helping deepen into the mystery. Maybe it feels very much like a beginner, unnameable practice. I don't want to say what that is for you. I also don't want to say that any of the seeking or teachings that you've come across are become outdated or wrong, but like, this is a pattern that I see that you might come across, and allowing that to be natural for you in this moment. It's going to change, it always will. But you don't have to stay stuck in the seeking. You don't have to stay addicted to the spiritual community that you started off in, or the spiritual texts, or you can stay alive with it if it's alive. But the devotion is to life and the mystery of life that is always changing. And so in some ways, the shifting into being can become a little bit more mysterious, and it's okay to update your library, or revisit your old library. It's okay to stay devotional as well. It's okay to stay connected to the sacred. That's really what you're finding. You're finding the sacred within and without that can't be separated from anything else. But we live in a world that pretends that it's not. So having some devotional discipline around that contact that you're never separate from, but in some moments your body, your mind, your form is celebrating. I guess the permission and the invitation here is to find that for yourself. if you're shifting out of seeking, to define, or not define, but to open into the devotional way of being that's most alive for you. That awakening doesn't have to lead to some detached or overly attached state. It's going to lead you most authentically, if it's a true, what I understand that word to be pointing to, shift. It's going to be yours. It's going to be your snowflake. It's going to be your thumbprint that connects to everything else that's most true, but it's going to unfold in your brilliant devotional way of life, and life will shine brighter with less suffering and more authenticity, exactly as it is, as it wants to.